Have you ever wondered what it takes to be a producer at NASA? Today, I am talking with Eric Galler, who is a television producer and director. This is a special show as Eric is joining us on the Books That Build Skills show during our Space Week, celebrating the future launch of NASA's Artemis mission and just days before our middle grade March reading challenge starts. I am putting extra attention on the characters in the books and the storylines so that you see how the books support you as a teenager when you're making those important life decisions as to which direction to take in life. One of the reasons I wrote the Charms books is to show the story behind the skills, how people like you end up in the high stakes, incredible careers like our guest. So welcome to the show, Eric. Tell our viewers a little bit more about what your day-to-day job is really like.
Okay, well, when I was working for NASA, it would start with a meeting, usually with about 200 plus people every single morning. I was a producer, director, screenwriter. There'd be at least 200 plus people from all the different NASA agencies, and we would discuss the daily goals. And every day was a little bit different. Yeah, there would be missions that would, of course, span long times, sometimes years. And then there's things that just happen yesterday or right then and there, and we have to address. And and so you would have from all the different space centers, and I was working at headquarters, but you would have Johnson Space Center, you have Glenn, you have Goddard, and of course, everybody's familiar with the Kennedy Space Center because that's where all the rockets get lifted off from. Every day at NASA was something different. It's just the way it was. 2 days were never the same.
Let's get into like the meat of what we're trying to discover for all of these teenagers out there. And, we're going to go through the trajectory of like way back when. So
Yeah.
looking back, which high school classes prepared you the most for your work and how do you actually use that knowledge in the job?
It's funny you said that. So I'm a Brooklyn born kid. So I grew up in New
Mhm.
York City. And my high school was called Beach Channel High School, and it was right on the water. It was a very unique school. It was actually an oceanography institute, the only high school oceanography institute I believe that existed. And so a lot of my studies were definitely science oriented, with marine biology, oceanography, all the sciences. Yeah, I had to take chemistry, like you had the required classes. You had physics and trigonometry. It was always very heavy on the science, probably because my father was very much in the sciences. He was a chemist and a pharmacist, and he even worked at school. Everybody knew my father, and so what I ended up doing is I ended up working. And that's in the school. We had marine biology lab and we had chemistry lab. I spent my free time in the marine biology lab and learning and just experiencing everything I could. I just loved it. And we also had a computer programming. So first thing when I got into school, I got into programming, and at the time it was very different from what you have today, of course. But yeah, it was. And I also had, believe it or not, we had a television studio, a full working television studio.
Wow.
I
This
know
is an awesome high school.
it really was. It was incredible. And we had a dock behind the school, and this is not a small school. I mean, in my graduating class, we had over 400 and something students. So this is a
Wow.
big city school, but it's very specialized city school. And that really, I didn't think I was going to go into television or anything like that, but I got to taste it. I got to experience different things and to see what striked an interest and a passion in me. Well, I can tell you the oceanography thing, the thing I never thought I would use. I mean, I loved oceanography, but I'm the son of a pharmacist. Who goes into oceanography? It just so happens years later, and we're talking a lot of years later, I ended up producing a series for Smithsonian called Life in the World's Oceans. And suddenly I had to draw on all this information that I learned back in high school. And I was happy to do so, mind you. But yeah, so you never know when that information is going to come up that you're going to need it.
Exactly. I say that all the time. I'm like, learn as many skills as you can and absorb as much as you can right now because you never know a year or 20 years or 30 years later, something's going to happen. It's going to be like, oh, wait, I know about that. And it just like magically comes back to the front of your brain again.
Exactly. Well, I wish it did come. It's completely magical. I had to dive into it. Every single project as a
Yeah,
producer and a director, but a producer especially, you need to suddenly put on
yeah.
this face and this facade that you are all knowing of that particular subject matter, and you can't really
Mhm.
fake it. You have to do the homework. You have to learn.
Yeah.
You have to learn the subject matter. Otherwise, you can't communicate in the same language with the other people that are actually doing that for a living, especially in the docu entertainment or documentary world in television.
Your career path to me
Mhm,
is just absolutely fascinating because you've worked in Hollywood
mhm,
and then with organizations like the Smithsonian and National Geographic and now NASA,
mhm.
and you're producing content around space and exploration. Walk us through your story arc. What were the key turns that took you from there to here?
Okay. Well, I've always been a science geek, and I'm sure like most people, rocket space, it's just cool. It's fun. Never thought that career-wise that I'd be involved in NASA. But I'm going to just say about 4 years before I actually started working at NASA, a job listing came up and it struck my interest. And I was like, why not? Let's just, because I did not have
Good.
that background. And I applied for this job and I had an interview at headquarters and they liked me. And I don't think I had left more than 15 minutes. I was in the car, I'm driving away, and they said, Eric, we want you to come back tomorrow for a second interview. And I'm like, oh, this is great. They loved me. And then I got the bomb. It said, "Oh, we're so sorry, but we have to hire somebody who's already working for government. And so we can't hire you right now, but keep in touch." Another job like 6 months later down the line came up and then I had to go through the whole interview process again because it's a process. This went on for 4 years. And then out of the blue, this gentleman named Tony, he just text. I had such a relationship with them already because they've seen me so many times that he just texted me. He's like, "What are you doing for the next 3 months?" And I was like, "Talk to me." They had an opening for 3 months. I was working in DC for a television news station at the time. Like my career has taken me in many different directions, and I came by right away because I was literally 15 minutes away from headquarters. And they said, "Yeah, we want you. Let's do the 3 months." I'm like, "Great," but I have my other job. So I worked my other job at night because I was on a night shift for the news, and I worked at NASA during the day for 3 months. So I'm doing double shifts for 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, they said, "We want to keep you." I said, "Thank you very much for my time at the news station, but I'm going to now
Yeah.
play with rockets and astronauts and helicopters on Mars."
Yeah, you can't turn that down at
No,
all.
no. And so that was just exciting and an unexpected journey. But
Yeah,
yeah, it took 4 years to get in the door there. They a lot of the people told me it's very competitive to get into NASA. It's not impossible because I come from a mindset and a background that nothing is impossible. I mean,
exactly.
nothing, and it's a lot of persistence.
Mhm.
It's a lot of persistence, and I think that was a big part of it because the people at NASA saw that I kept applying, kept applying, kept applying, and I kept getting so close and then rejected, and so close and then rejected, and then the door opened. The
Yeah.
door opened. Yeah.
And kind of talk more about your background because, the Hollywood piece of it is fascinating too. So they kind of see what it took to build up to NASA.
So I went to a film school in Santa Barbara, and it was after I had to go through 2.5 years of regular university, get my liberal arts out of the way, and
Yeah.
I had to create a portfolio. I got accepted to a school called Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara. A son of a pharmacist going into film, it was absurd, but my parents supported me. It was very foreign to them because nobody I knew was in the entertainment industry. When I was my first year in college, I learned that people make a living.
Mhm.
It's not something that's not tangible. I took as many classes outside of film school that I could take. I started taking acting classes at the city college because my
Yeah.
professors were saying if you're going to talk to an actor and you want to direct, you got to understand the mindset of the actor. Then I took classes down at UCLA, which is a 2 hour drive south from Santa Barbara to Los Angeles. I was doing that on weekends as well, getting as many classes, taking internships. And what was fun is that I was working at Universal Studios while they were shooting, filming, Back to the Future 2 and 3. So I was there on set while they were doing like the hoverboard scenes in the future. I'm sure everybody that is familiar with the Back to the Future movies. Now, I wasn't working for them. I was working for Universal, and I was actually working in a building called 50 at the time, which was just editing. And so you had all the motion pictures for Universal all being cut and assembled in this one building. So I got to work with all the old timers, and they had different sounds. It was just different time. It was, and you had the transition. You had the old timers. I was sitting in rooms with Mickey Rooney and these other actors that were just from the golden age of cinema, who worked on movies, and I ended up producing movies that you would get like a Blockbuster Video, and I ended up in television. Just transitioned, working for Discovery Channel type shows and History Channel and TLC and travel and military. So the whole gamut.
So that's very impressive to me, and it just I can just imagine you've got so many fun stories that we don't have time to cover all of them.
No,
But
not today.
yeah. So you've met a lot of incredible people in the space industry. Was there any one that you've met that you immediately thought, "Yeah, I totally wanna be friends with this person?" And what kind of qualities or traits did they have that stood out to you?
The one gentleman, he's the commander of the Artemis 2 mission.
Mm.
We had a nice conversation, and it was kind of like a dad conversation because he was in my office, and he saw a picture of my daughters on my desk, and he picked it up and started talking about it, and then he was talking about his son, and it was just a good camaraderie. He does like weekly posts now, so I'm seeing as he's getting closer and closer to launch date. Artemis 2 is coming up, which is very exciting, and it was just a good camaraderie. It was really good camaraderie. Now I got to meet, and because I was at headquarters, I got to meet the administrator, which is the top at the time, the deputy administrator, and they were all astronauts, and so they all had stories. I have to tell you, besides the Artemis commander, there is a gentleman, Bob Cabana. Actually, I think Bob Cabana is probably the most astronaut or person at NASA that has the right stuff. And the reason I say that, he's a pilot and he commanded the space shuttles. He was the first American on the ISS when they were finally combining with the American and the Russian sectors. He
Mhm.
was there. He had wonderful stories. I was there for his retirement, and he was just a beautiful human being. Loved what he loved serving. He loved serving. I remember he told me that whenever anyone had anything that needed to be done or asked him to take on a particular mission, he would never turn them down. And that stuck with me. They asked him to do something, he'd do it. They wanted him to run a particular space agency. Okay, I'm going to go. You don't have to ask me twice. And that was the kind of person. He had the right stuff. He has the right stuff. He's still out there.
You've been on site for countless rocket launches and astronaut interviews at NASA.
Mhm.
When you're standing there and a launch is happening, what does it actually feel like in that moment knowing that you're watching history be made in real time?
It's vibrant. It's exciting. You first of all, you're not very close to the rocket launch pad. I mean, you're a good distance away for safety. People are at a distance, but you can feel it in the air. You can hear it. First of all, you're hearing it after it takes place. So there's always a delay. Once the rocket launches, there's a delay of the actual sound. Um, and it's just excitement, and everybody's excited. And there's also that moment of, ooh, is it going to happen or
Mm.
something going to go wrong? That's right. It's the, you know, and it's not until the capsule is in orbit that people are kind of like, okay, now we could take a moment's breath and take on the next moment. When the last rocket launch that I was there for was actually that launch where the two astronauts got stuck for 8 months. And I'm not going to say they got stuck. They were busy
Yeah.
working, and if they needed to come down sooner, they could have come down if they had to. But that was pretty exciting. I happened to be I was working at headquarters, but I was brought down to Kennedy Space Center, and I worked as a camera operator that day. I'm not a camera operator by trade, but it's one of my many skill sets. As a producer, I always feel you got to know how to use your tools again to communicate to other camera people. And so I was on top of the vehicle assembly building for that launch. Which and in fact, they asked me. They said, "Eric, where do you want to be?" And I'm like, "I don't know." They said, "Well, the best view is on top of the vehicle assembly building." And so that's where I was stationed. And in terms of the work itself, it wasn't that exciting. I'm sure if you watch a live launch, and when you watch the Artemis 2 launch coming up, you'll have that moment when the astronauts get transported down this long road all the way down
Mhm.
to the to the launch pad. Well, I was a camera operator where I would capture them from one side of the building, then we'd move the camera, and then I'd get this really long shot of them driving away. So the
Yeah.
that was not very exciting, but but the launch is very exciting. And at the same weekend, there was another SpaceX launch, and now it's getting to be where there's just launches all the time.
What kind of training or skill building did you do as a young adult that helps you today? And are there skills you didn't realize that were important at the time, but they turned out to be career-saving superpowers?
I built a couple of tree houses, probably where I wasn't supposed to, alongside a freeway with scrap wood that we'd find at construction sites. It's very,
Yeah.
very Tom Sawyer. I had a little bit of a Tom Sawyer type, even though I was in New York City. I also grew up only a few blocks from the water as well. Um, and I liked building things. I like building models and balsa wood airplanes. I've always had a thing for aviation. I'm obviously, and I liked having a place to work and think about ideas. Creative writing was also a big to do, and coming up with story ideas and then playing them out in my
Mhm,
head. My father loved
mhm.
photography. It would take him forever to take a picture, though. He would just stand there and folk and the thing is back then, you'd have a film camera and you'd have, what, 12 exposures or 24
Yeah, and you
exposures?
had to manually adjust the exposure and aperture yourself. It
Yes.
didn't automatically happen.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You had to think about it. And so,
Yes.
yeah, so you'd have a light meter and you'd have to get the right exposure and make sure the ISO is correct. And my father also handed me a film camera, a regular 8 motion picture camera. And then we went to Super 8, and then, we'd cut some stuff together. But again, it was a hobby. I never
Yeah.
thought you could turn a hobby or a passion into a
A
career.
real job.
Who thunk? Who thunk? No, I went to a career fair
Mhm.
when I was a freshman in college, and I walked up to this booth, and they had a student-run video studio, could make your own videos, and in a
That's
studio
cool.
with control room and mess around, fool around, and just be silly and
Yeah.
try things. That was the thing. We could just try things, and if it didn't work out, that's okay because you could learn from that. You always learn from your failures, and so we had a lot of failures, a lot
Mhm.
of scripts that were not funny, cuts and camera work that was not very aesthetically pleasing, but you learn that way. And and
Mhm.
and 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 so it kind of prepared me. And I actually, when I'm a freshman in college, I started working for a TV station on Tuesday and Wednesday nights in Manhattan on East 23rd Street. I made $15 per show.
Yeah.
Was it 15 or 10? Yeah, it was
Per
like I think
show. Yeah.
per show. Per
Not per
show.
hour, per show.
Per show, that's right, per
Yeah.
show. So I'd maybe work 3 shows a night, but I'd have to stick around for 5 hours or 6
Yeah.
hours. But it wasn't about the money. It
Yeah, it was
wasn't
about
about
the
the money.
experience.
It's getting the experience and meeting people, and these were live shows. This is before internet. This is before regular cable TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we need to, like, put the disclaimer out there, kids. This was before what you have now, because just about every single high school now has this whole video production type class.
Right.
And back then, when Eric and I were in high school and college, it was amazing when you had, your video studio to go to. My high school did not have that. My
Yeah.
college did not have that. I went to art college. This was like some primo experience happening here.
Absolutely. I took advantage of everything I could because
Mhm.
my junior high and elementary school, they didn't have anything like that. And when I went to this
Yeah,
high school that had it was wow, it was like the Wizard of Oz. You had all these things.
yeah.
I took advantage of it. I learned instruments. I really believe that every person should learn an instrument, involve music in their lives. When I was
Mhm.
7, I started on the piano. When I got into high school, I played the trumpet, and I got in after a year of struggle because I'm not a natural trumpet player. There's some people are. I am not. But I got into the concert band, and I got into the jazz band, and I was horrible, but they were desperate. But I loved it. It was fun, and you're working with other people, and you're creating the sound together, which translates and crosses over into everything. Because it's very rare that you're a one man or one person band where you're doing everything yourself.
Mhm.
It's never worked. It's never really you'll have to answer to somebody. You have to work with someone else. So it teaches you to work with other people to create one sound. That's why I love bands and being part of music and working on a production. I've worked on productions where I'd be the leader. Yes, I could be a one person, but then you'll have 3 people. And then I've worked on shows we had 60 people, not including the cast and the studio mothers and the studio teachers. But the goal is always the same. You're working together to complete a goal. And
Yeah.
so those things that I learned in high school, whether it was working in the lab or in being in a band or being on a swimming team, I was on a swimming team, you're working together. Those lessons, all those skills combined, I think applied to my professional and adult life, learning how to work with other people and be a leader at the same
Yes.
time.
Yeah, it's such an important skill. And
Absolutely.
it's fun too to think about a lot of what you're doing is what people right now would go, "Oh, those were the fun, easy classes." "Oh, you got to go to band, and oh, you were doing all these fun things." Because there is so much pressure now on high school students to take the AP classes and be very concentrated. But, layering in the band and swim team and being at a cool high school where you have
Yeah.
all these different experiences, that really helps to build you out as a person. And these are skills that, as you've said before, you're using skills on a show for oceanography related information because of
Right.
the high school you went to. It's like
Yeah.
all of these little things are so important, and they might not help with getting into whichever college that you want to go to, but it's going to help in life, which is the most important thing, is what happens beyond college. Or
I agree 1,000 times %. It's the different experiences. It's not just about the grade.
if you could leave our Space Week viewers with one message about courage or curiosity or taking risk, what would it be?
Have courage and take lots of risks. Um,
Yes! I like that.
I used to say sky's the limit, sky's not the limit, obviously.
Yeah. Now to infinity and beyond.
To beyond, it is, I say, try it, fail, try it again, fail, try it again, you might fail. Everything you work at, you will get better at. That I learned from a martial artist. Things that you work at, you get better at, which is the truth.
Mhm.
So if you happen to do well, great, you'll only get better. And if you happen to be weak, you'll only get stronger. But you have to do it. You have to apply it and repetition and just do the work.
Well, thank you for being on the show with us, Eric. Everyone, go check out his background on LinkedIn. It is mind blowing. Kids, take notes because his career path is a great one to follow. And thank you for watching Books That Build Skills. If today's story sparked an idea or gave you courage or helped you see what's possible, then we did our job. Now, remember, skills aren't born, they are built. One choice, one challenge, and one brave step at a time. So hit subscribe, follow along, share this with someone who needs it, and keep exploring, building, reading, and dreaming big. I'm Loxley Browne. This is Books That Build Skills, and you're just getting started.